Stephanie, are we ready? Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll start with roll call.
Director Assad Lucas.
Here.
Director Battistelli.
Here.
Director Goldstein.
Here.
Director Marsh-Holshin.
Here.
Director Potter.
Here.
I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion?
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holshin. Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, let's rise if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start off with superintendent update.
Thank you, Lori. So I'll be fairly brief. I would say that the issues most pressing and top of mind for me right now are two. And one we've just had an extensive discussion about in work study session, which are the widespread, unsubstantiated, non-credible threats of school violence that are circulating throughout much of our community, throughout much of our state, and throughout much of our country right now. It's a very challenging time to do your best work when you're spending so much time dealing with the various threats and how they get tweaked and adjusted a little bit to be applicable to a specific school and allege certain times or certain grade levels or certain students are going to be the alleged perpetrators. I hope that our students and community members will start to act in more responsible ways than some of them have been in spreading these false rumors, but it's certainly been stressful and distracting and not the way that we would want the rest of the school year to go. So I hope we can turn a corner soon. And then the second thing I would update you all about, I think I forwarded all to you some email communications, and some of them came to you directly related to the resignation of Mike Bauman as the assistant principal at Mountain View Elementary School last Thursday. I met with Mike this morning along with Mila from HR for about an hour and a half and learned quite a bit more about the issues and concerns that Mike was feeling that prompted him to resign. And there's a number of steps that I've committed to Mike to take to learn more about some of those issues and concerns. One of the first steps was to meet with Peggy Heath, who's the principal of the school, to get more perspective from her on some of the issues that Mike brought forward, and I believe that happened this afternoon with Bo and Mila. So I look forward to hearing more about that. I've committed to the Mountain View staff that I'll go out there and meet with them next week, and I'm going to work with Mike so that I can share more specifics about how he was feeling and the issues that he was struggling with in terms of interactions with some others in district leadership, and then invite a lot of feedback from that staff about some of the issues that they may have perspective and information about as well. So I wanted to let you know that's where it stands. Mike is somebody that I've known from before his first day here. He's someone I hold in high regard and respect, and I'm sad that he is not part of our team at this point, and I just want to dig into this as earnestly as we can and see what adjustments we might need to make so that we don't lose a great talent like Mike in the future. So those are the two things most pressing for me right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Board of Education comments, recognition, awards, and vision. I'll start with Director Potter.
Good evening, everybody. I'll keep my comments pretty brief. I had my first sporting event as a Hawks parent over the weekend or over this last week, and it was pretty exciting. As many people know, my children go to a charter school, and so they play sports nearby at Horizon High School, and just the culture and experience of being there with a high school team, with Horizon and the Hawks, it was truly something special, and I look forward to many, many more experiences. Having a freshman, that meant I also got to experience homecoming, and I'm not as excited about having many more of those to come. But everyone was safe, everyone made good choices. Didn't sound like there was any chaos that really took place out on that football field, but I'm grateful for all the staff that made that possible and continue to keep all of our kids safe, especially during these trying times. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Marsh-Holston?
Thank you. As a Mountain View graduate, I just wanted to thank staff. I think, I know the community has feelings about it, and I too think Mr. Bauman is a great talent, want to keep, but I appreciate the work that leadership has done to really address the issue. And I know the community at least feels heard, which I appreciate. So I am excited for everyone's homecoming, and I hope they have a really great homecoming. And if you're not in Broomfield, come down to Broomfield Days this weekend, because I think Legacy's marching, and we'll have a lot of good school spirit out there. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Director Battistelli?
I have a few updates. I was able to visit Stellar Elementary School with the principal, Jennifer Buck, gave me a tour. The elementary school is a lovely space. I think it was built about 17 years ago, so you can really see that it's more of a modern learning space. It's also, some interesting things about it is that it was built as an overflow school, and that a lot of the students commute in, so they have to bus in, as opposed to other elementary schools where kids generally walk to school, or their parents drive them. They have 17 languages spoken in that building, and according to Principal Buck, their bilingual students' median growth percentile was on track to the average was on track to EL proficiency at 82%, which exceeds state expectations. So that's a really nice metric that we can celebrate for our district. I also just wanted to take a moment, since this is Classified Staff Month, to show appreciation. I wanted to talk about the warehouse team, who was really instrumental in the Back to School Bash and the 5-star kickoff. The warehouse team in that 3-day period was coordinating the delivery of materials to the 2 different stadium locations. It was about 1,500 chairs for the kickoff, unloading all those trucks full of backpacks. It was pretty obvious if you were there and you saw them that they were busting their rear ends to help make sure that the events went off without a hitch. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Assad Lucas?
Good evening. Well, but according to my attire, you can determine who won. The North Glen Thornton football team. However, I will add, the Thornton volleyball team did win the week before. No, I attended that last Friday night with President Goldstein, and as always, just such a fun game to attend. They were having, what was it, the class of 84 champions and a reunion, and so that was just so much fun to watch and be part of. And Sherry Blunt, who's the principal at North Glen, was part of that. And so when they announced her name, just how all the kids cheering and parents, and it was really neat. I visited Thornton Middle School yesterday, and we just visited the different classrooms. Kids got to share what they're learning, how they're learning it, all that. It was just really great to be back into the schools and the classrooms and talking to kids. And that school in particular holds a place in my heart, because many, especially the 6th graders this year, I have known since preschool or kindergarten. I went to school with one of my kids, and so even though she attends a different middle school, but it was just really fun to see them and have them share things that they love about their new middle school. So today I visited North Glen High School, and I thought I was going to be able to attend their pep assembly, but it was this morning, and I was there this afternoon, so I missed it. But got to hear about it's the freshman's first pep assembly, so all the growing pains that come with that, and asking, where do I sit, and then being under where it says freshman, So it was pretty fun to listen to and hear about, but just great feedback to get, hear how the school's doing, what things are working great, things that, continue to improve on. Of course, cell phone use and social media came up in the discussion, so having continued conversations around that. A few of us have been attending city council meetings to share the blueprint information. That's our bond and mill, and now labeled as 5B and 5E on the ballot. And it was really great. I attended the city of Westminster to share about it, that, very supportive, and took in the information, and we'll probably be introducing a resolution in the next meeting. And then attended the City of Thornton's council meeting, where they unanimously supported our bond and mill through a resolution, and highlighted the importance of supporting our school district, because even Mayor Coleman made the comment of strong schools equals strong communities. So that was really great. We appreciate their support. Also, just to address some of what Superintendent Godowski mentioned, some of these school rumors and unsubstantiated threats is, I experienced the situation this morning with it, and even though it was okay and it's fine, just dealing with an anxious child from it, and how stressful and scary that is, and very, very disruptive to their education, and just how stressed and anxious parents are about it. And so I strongly, strongly encourage, and I shared this with many of the parents I knew, if you see something or hear something, and also please share this with your children, but reach out to somebody, directly to like either the principal or somebody else maybe within the district that can confirm one way or the other, instead of reaching out to maybe other parents who don't know for sure, kids reaching out to other kids. I mean, even I shared this earlier, but even after it was unfounded and cleared, I mean, my child is even texting, oh, I heard this or I heard that. So just really encouraging where they get their information and how they get it, and to whom they can share that with, to make sure that it's factual and not continuing to spread misinformation. But yeah, that's all I have. So thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. A week ago Friday, I went to studio school, and I hung out with the drama teacher, Mr. Sanks, and I think it was either third or fourth grade, and they had a resident from the Denver Center for the Performing Arts as a guest resident teacher. And so I just joined the class. It was fun. And we were using expression, learning how to express things and different emotions and to mean different things. It was kind of fun. And I figured I wasn't just going to sit there and watch them, so I just joined them. And then Monday the 9th, I went to Glenwood Springs, actually, for the CASB, Colorado Association of School Boards, has their Federal Relations Network, which I'm a part of, has a bus tour every year. And if you recall, last year, we were part of the bus tour. So this year, we chose Roaring Fork School District because they have teacher housing. And we spent the morning in elementary school, and you walk in the door and they were waiting for us. The 5th grade ambassadors, they grabbed us and escorted us to the cafeteria where we had a breakfast. The healthy meals is in effect there too. And then we met various people in the district, the superintendent and chief academic officer and the chief operating officer. And then we visited classrooms, and it was school board members and legislators and staffers from the senators' offices, Hickenlooper and Bennett, that are, keep up with what's going on in education. And then, since it was a bus tour, we had to take a school bus, and we took it to their the ad building, which is in Carbondale, so about a half-hour ride between Glenwood and Carbondale. And I believe Basalt is also part of this district. And we had somebody from the West, like Parachute, that superintendent talked to us too about teacher housing and then the housing that they had. And then we had a couple of high school kids talk to us at 2. And then we got back on the bus, and it was like a really short bus ride to go see the teacher housing. And it was really lucky because they actually had some that was just about finished. So it wasn't being occupied, but we could go in and see what it was like. And they're apartments, and they have they have like 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom. And, you know, they have it set price-wise to be something that is affordable for the educator. And then they also have it, interestingly, it's not much different. The school district's kind of in the mortgage business because they're paying off a loan using the rent. It takes a little longer than what, you know, we're typically used to, but it does provide that opportunity for their educators to live there. It was really an interesting experience. I too went to City Council for Thornton and watched them unanimously approve supporting our mill and bond. I've been in contact with North Glen, and they're going to be talking about it. And I've also been in contact with the county commissioners, and they'll be talking about it. So, and then Broomfield also. And since I have to go to Borough next Monday, which is the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, since I represent the school districts, I'll take that opportunity to make a public comment. I went to a celebration for our lobbyist, Tanya Kelly Bowery, at Anschutz campus, and they were celebrating her work that she had done at CU, actually. But just to have some, you know, and there were elected officials and folks that she had interacted with, both sides of the aisle, praising her excellent work that she's done for years. And so it was really an honor to be invited to this, to watch her be celebrated. She really deserved it. And I was walking in with a gentleman, and I looked at him, and I was like, I think that's Governor Bill Ritter. And sure enough, it was. And then one of the first speakers was former Senator Cory Gardner. And then, you know, you had Bruce Benson and Bob Bupre, and you had the chancellor, or the president, Todd Solomon. And so it was just really neat to see. And I said, but wait a second, you're not really retiring, are you? Because what about us? So anyway, she's not going anywhere, just changing things. Northland High School, Thornton football game. I've thought that the way they honored the class of '84 was really cool, because that was the year where several sports teams won state championships, not just the football, but cross country, and I believe soccer, girls soccer, boys soccer. And there were a whole bunch of them there, and we were down there on the field talking with some of them, and I learned that some of them actually went to Westlake when I taught there. One of them is our own Teresa Gilbreth, and we know each other pretty well, but we'd never made that connection because our last names are different. But now we know, and it was just a neat. Some of you might remember Dominic Capra, who was the football coach. He passed away many years ago now, but his wife, Deb Capra, who also served in our district, she was there to represent him, and Coach Gallus was there. He's now retired too. And Rosati, he was the soccer coach. It was just neat to see all these people, and they're like grown-ups. So, and I will say, right, and I will say that had the C team, football team, the next day lost to Thornton, I would have worn a Thornton shirt tonight, but you can see I'm not wearing a Thornton shirt because the C team, which my son plays for, actually won too. Not quite as much as Friday night. It was like 8-0, but it was pretty substantial Friday night. I went out to Legacy High School on Monday to sign a grant for them in the counseling department, and I guess I could have just signed it and nothing would have ever been, but they invited me out there to learn about it, so I said sure. So the counselors are applying, it's called RAMP, Recognized American School Counselor Association Model Program. So it's called, and ASCA is their professional association. And I think it was maybe a year or so ago, maybe two, that Rocky Top counselors also received this award. So the legacy counselors and Jeff Hargis has really taken this on to really, they did a real thoughtful and showed me the book that, everything that they're doing that will help them get recognized. And so hopefully they'll be recognized, and then there's like a national recognition for that. So that was good. And then today I went to the 8th grade career fair. I love going to the 8th grade career fair ever since I was an 8th grade teacher. And I have to say, it's just evolved into something really, truly amazing. Back when I used to take kids, it was at the Merchandise Mart. And if you remember how big the Merchandise Mart was, it was pretty comparable. It held things pretty well. But then they closed that. And so the last couple years, it's been out at the Western Stock Show. This year, they moved it to the fairgrounds. And they also moved it to 2 days. Because there's like 6,000 8th graders in Adams County, and that's a lot of kids to push through something. And if you want them to have an experience where they get to go and talk to different educational places or businesses or whatever, this year they had enough time to thoughtfully do that. And so if you know the fairgrounds, it started in the exhibition hall where they had a big chunk of the vendors there. And then it was such a nice day. They had in the courtyard between the exhibition hall and the Waymire Dome, they had the construction companies, like they had A&P, Adolph Peterson, they had RTD, they had the IBW, the electrical, they had sheet metal, they had Martin, my husband's company. And then they went from there into the Waymire Dome where they had the higher ed, they had our school districts, so HR was there. HR was there. And talked to Sarah and Melissa? Yep. And just talking with kids about all the different jobs that you can do at Adams 12. And 27J was there, and Mapleton and all those. And then so the banking and finance people were in there too. And it just flowed really well. And I was the one in charge of telling them it was the 5-minute warning, and then that was time to go on the bus. So that's what I did today. It was really fun. So anyway, that's it. Now we're on to public comment.
Good evening. The board welcomes public comment to learn about the preferences and concerns of the Adams 12 5-star community. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Please use the microphone and state your name and city of residence before beginning your comments. Please give any handouts or information you would like to share with the board to Lee Koka here to my right. A 3-minute timer will be set for each speaker. Please keep an eye on the timer. Speakers will be informed when that time has expired, and we ask that you end your comments at that time. Our first speaker tonight will be Valerie Meters. She's not here, so we're going to move on to Dr. Jared Lee.
There's a microphone there. Turn it on and wait a second, and then it should be working.
Hi, my name is Jared Lee. I live in Broomfield. My wife Karen and I, we have 2 kids who go to Mountain View. So I just wanted to just take a moment to at least make a public comment in support of Mike Bauman, the recently departed assistant principal at Mountain View. I just want to say, like, in our 2+ years having kids at Mountain View, in all of our interactions with Mike, he's just been unfailingly kind, caring, professional, and he's really cared deeply about the kids and the staff at Mountain View. And so something just doesn't seem right about this situation. It's not in his character to leave abruptly a month into a school year. I mean, he came back to Mountain View right after his house burned down in the Marshall Fire. So he is dedicated to this community, and this community is dedicated to him too. Today, all the staff, most of the kids, a lot of the parents at drop-off, we all wore green in support of Mike Bauman and his famous green pants. So I don't know what happened, but something isn't right. And my concern for this district it just doesn't seem like he's being treated well. And again, I'm glad that, Superintendent Godowski, that you met with him today. And I would just encourage there to be more transparency with the Mountain View community about what happened. Because when it's just the very bland HR speak of resign for personal reasons, but without having the opportunity to say goodbye to any of the kids or anything like that, something isn't right. And so I'd encourage you all on the board to please ask questions, and please share information with the community as soon as you're able. We need answers. And I'll just say also the third graders are organizing a petition to try to bring him back. So he is much loved in that community. And so I know there's only a small chance, but if there's any way to encourage him to come back or to bring him back, the community would welcome him back with open arms, because he is much loved and supported. And I just want to say again, as my time's ending here, with Mike's departure, Mountain View and Adams 12 has lost a very talented administrator, a really caring educator, and most importantly, a really wonderful person. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our final speaker for the night will be Carrie Weaver.
Use my teacher voice. Okay. Good evening. My name is Carrie Weaver, and I work at STEM Launch as the GTA and DLP. Today, I'm here to voice my strong opposition of Colorado Amendment 80, the constitutional right of school choice initiative. I see firsthand how vital it is to ensure every child has access to a free and equal education. This amendment threatens to undermine the right and harm the very students we are committed to serve. While school choice sounds really empowering, Amendment 80 would deepen inequalities by diverting public dollars to private and charter schools, draining essential funding from public schools that serve our most vulnerable students. 95% of Colorado students attend public schools, which means Amendment 80 would pull resources from the vast majority of our children. Many of our students face significant challenges and have needs for specialized education. This includes food insecurity and access to free and mental health services. Students need specialized support ranging from our gifted learners to those with learning differences. Public schools are the backbone of our community and provide not just an education, but also those critical services and supports that students need to overcome the barriers and become valuable citizens. Here in Adams 12, equity is our driving force behind every decision. We ensure every child has the opportunity to succeed, options to meet our learning pathways, and choices to prepare them to thrive in their adult lives. By allowing state funding to be funneled into private schools, Amendment 80 creates a two-tiered system of education. Families with more monetary resources could access better options, while lower-income students, like those I serve, will be left with extremely underfunded public schools and fewer opportunities and options, those that we have strived to provide in this district. Amendment 80 also locks up public funding for private schools into the state constitution for the very first time, making this shift permanent and difficult to ever reverse. Moreover, private and charter schools are not held to the same accountability standards as our public schools. The lack of accountability poses a significant risk for our students. Public schools have to meet state requirements to ensure all students receive a high-quality education. Private schools, however, get to select which students get admitted, and they don't offer the same services, mostly to our students with disabilities, high needs, or behavioral challenges. I urge you to oppose Amendment 80 and advocate for all public schools, all educators, support service providers, and staff members, and most importantly, for our students. Let's work together to create a system that fosters true equality and opportunity for every child, not just those with the means to navigate an unequal system. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Board committee liaison reports, DAC and FAC. So start with the DAC.
We met last Wednesday, and it was a very full meeting because there's a lot of ground to cover. It's the framework for the new members of the DAC committee. It was wonderful getting to know some of those new members a little bit better. Some of the major topics discussed were the areas that the DAC covers, like the uniform improvement plan, spending priorities, the school accountability committees. So they went into detail on what the school accountability committees are, and they discussed the DAC members' role as a liaison to those school accountability committees, which is one of my favorite features of this framework. So there was a little bit of wrangling. We have a bit of too much representation in some schools, and we needed to move some folks over to other schools to make sure our representation was a bit more balanced as far as DAC members acting as liaisons. So at this point, I'm happy to say that they have 31 of 53 schools where we have a DAC liaison, and that's wonderful. We want to get as many voices and perspectives as we can. They also discussed the upcoming charter renewal for the New America Academy, and they were looking for parents and community members from the DAC to take part in that. They discussed the Policy Council. This is a meeting where they tend to ask DAC folks to participate in the Policy Council. I think they have 6 seats available to them, and they found 4 people at that meeting who were willing to do that. They might have found 2 more, I'm not sure. The final item they discussed was the DAC bylaws on sort of opening up participation on the Policy Council if the DAC doesn't have enough people to fill their 6 seats. So I think that will be discussed in more detail in later meetings, but it was a pretty full meeting.
Thank you. FAC?
There was no FAC meeting since our last update.
I don't know what the protocol would be, but I don't think Valerie got the memo that we started at 6. And she had signed up for public comment. What happens there?
I think it's probably up to the board that you could amend your agenda to just have another period of brief public comment for the speaker who wasn't able to be present before, if that's the desire of the board.
Okay, do I have a motion to amend the agenda to allow for a second public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holshen.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, go ahead and have our second round of public comment.
So I think Stephanie's getting her timer ready. She won't read the whole script. I think the key things are to state your name, which city you reside in, and to be aware that you've got 3 minutes, and she'll probably hold up a sign at 30 seconds to let you know.
Thank you for making time for me to speak. My name is Valerie Mutters. I am a resident of Westminster. I am also a parent and a teacher within the district. And I am speaking to express my support in the board's opposition to Amendment 80 for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the amendment is redundant. We already have school choice. We've had it for 30 years. Secondly, budget stabilization factor is no longer impacting educational funding. Sadly, the current budget is in line with 1989 funding levels, and Amendment 80 allows the insufficient budget to be divided further into pockets that can select students that they want to serve in public education. I'm sorry, private education. And lastly, in a time where I will be walking to pass the bond and mill levy for 5E and 5D, I support the board wanting to eliminate the possibility of more funding going into pockets that do not serve our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to the board business. So there's a couple of resolutions in your packet tonight. And the first one is in opposition to Amendment 80, which is on the ballot. I know usually we talk about them first and then vote the next meeting, but with the election coming so soon, I felt that, we could have a great conversation and decide right then and there whether or not we wanted to support this. So I will ask if there's a motion to adopt the resolution opposing proposed Amendment 80 to the Colorado Constitution as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And I'm going to call on Phil. He wants to make an amendment.
Yes, as I mentioned during the work study session, I had some concerns about the very last paragraph of this proposed resolution. That paragraph is on the second page of my version, and it says, "Be it further resolved that the harm caused to the Adams 12 five-star schools by Amendment 80, commonly called school choice in K-12 education, will be made publicly available in clear, accessible formats to ensure transparency and highlight how voucher systems undermine public accountability." And my recommendation is that in order to be very clear that we're not going to have any potential violations or challenges under the Fair Campaign Practices Act, that option one, I would say you could strike that paragraph, and I think the resolution still sends a message. And if the board wanted to strike that and replace it with something else, option two would be to write, "Be it further resolved that the passage of this resolution will be communicated in compliance with the Fair Campaign Practices Act." So, if you're interested in my recommendation, the person that made the first motion could agree to that and alter their motion so, or as stated by me under option one or option two. And then the person that seconded, if they agreed, it could be a new motion to consider the resolution as modified.
So I would move to just strike that last paragraph in the resolution from this resolution.
I second that.
You agreed to that modification?
Correct.
All right, and is that clear to Stephanie? Okay.
Do we have to vote on it?
You have to vote on the modified resolution, and then we'll vote on the actual resolution.
Okay, because we haven't discussed it.
Yeah, we're going to consider the modified motion. So let's take a vote on that, just to be extra careful here.
Okay.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marsh Holshin.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, now we discuss the resolution. All right. Who wants to start?
I am happy to start the conversation. You know, when I heard this was coming, or going to be on the ballot, all I could think of was Nebraska. This is my home state. From a very small school district there. I mean, everyone knows Cabela's and probably Sydney. That's my hometown. But, you know, last I saw, they have about 1,300 students enrolled, which is probably more than when I was. But last year, Nebraska passed pretty much the same amendment. And Sydney lost, their public school district with 1,300 students, lost over $600,000 of funding immediately, which led to one of their schools having to be shut down. It's not like they have many to begin with anyway. And so, I mean, it really did cause some dire strains. And many of the people who supported that amendment are now supporting an amendment that is probably going to be on the ballot that will hopefully reverse that First Amendment and not allow public tax dollars to go to private institutions such as private schools that do not have to follow the same laws and transparency as public schools. And so, I mean, it was, again, and that was just one tiny school district in Nebraska. It was devastating across the state for pretty much all the rural school districts. And I was just trying to think, last I heard, the closest private school that, you know, vouchers could be used was in Kearney, Nebraska, which is 3 hours away from Sydney. And so it was just devastating to the majority of Nebraska that is rural school districts. And the same very well will happen here. It will devastate our rural school districts. And they don't have choices. They don't have options like, you know, for private schools that others do. They rely on their public school district. And so they're already underfunded. I mean, we're all underfunded in the state of Colorado as it is. And this will cause such significant harm to students who attend public schools. So I guess I share the cautionary tale of Nebraska as a wake up, because, or as a warning sign for Colorado, because it will be devastating.
Mira spoke to the impact to public schools and public school funding. I think there's also, and she mentioned this as well, but I want to emphasize it even more, that when you have public dollars, they should require public oversight. And I think our districts are held to an oversight expectation that private schools are just not held to. And by opening this door, we're placing kids at further risk of being potentially, for lack of a better term, abused by private schools, because they do not have that level of oversight to make sure that a kid is not discriminated against because of their abilities or for other factors. It's just very risky to open this floodgate. And I tend to like to think of all the kids in our district, whether they're homeschooled, charter school students, they're all our kids, and it's our obligation to protect them. And I think voting to support this resolution is a vote to protect our kids, and also a vote to make sure that our public dollars are spent wisely and for the right reasons.
I think I have some concerns about this resolution. I keep hearing about vouchers and school funding. However, that is not part of the ballot language being introduced with Amendment 80. While I understand there are some concerns that that may possibly open a floodgate, there is no language saying that school funding will go to private schools. There's no funding saying that, or there's no language saying that charter schools will not have to be transparent with the funding that they get. We have charter schools here in Adams 12, all of them have to report either to us or the state, and they have to report on the information. It is our job to oversee our charter schools and hold them accountable. And so I'm a little bit concerned of some of the verbiage that I have heard. While we are neighboring to Nebraska, we are not the same, and we are number 2 in the country as far as charter school enrollment goes. There is a lot of importance involved with choice, and this ballot, or this Amendment 80, is really designed to say you are allowed to have choices. This is in place because we have neighboring school districts like Adams 14 that their right to authorize a charter was revoked because they were blanket rejecting all charter applications that came to their desk. And while we do have that in the law already, I think it is important to acknowledge that there are places that say, no, you can't be a charter school here. You only have the public education choice. And for some children, that's just not enough. We've seen a decline in enrollment here in Adams 12, and some of that is because of declining population and people moving away. But that's also because our homeschool communities are thriving, our private schools are full, and our charter schools are on wait list. Adams 12 is home to the largest charter school in the state of Colorado, and it serves a population that still needs so much serving, the gifted and talented population. We have a school in Aurora, Colorado. It is specifically designed to cater to teen parents and pregnancies, their graduation rates are double what they are in the rest of the Aurora School District. There is a purpose for charter schools, homeschools, and sometimes private schools, and I think that we need to be very careful of taking a strong stance, one side or another, because there are a lot of families in Adams 12 that have kids in multiple places. Charter schools are not stealing funding from the district. It is another option, and some districts have the need for a charter school. We talk about declining enrollment, and I am fearful that there are some districts that are right there on the cusp. They are not big enough, and they're not growing enough to build that new school, but they still have schools that are at capacity. And without charter schools or homeschools or private schools coming in to provide some relief, they would be stuck at capacity and overflowing classrooms with large class sizes for longer than I would want any teacher to have to deal with. So I'm concerned about this. Our resolution makes mention of, where did it say here, vouchers. And again, here it says, now therefore be it resolved that Adams 12 5-star School Board of Education opposes school vouchers and Amendment 80, commonly called school choice and K-12 education. I would like to see vouchers stricken from that, as it is not part of the Amendment 80. And I would like to see some rewording done on the financial piece, because while this could have the potential consequences of maybe causing some of our students to leave, therefore a lack of school funding, it is not a direct correlation. This is not like it's going to pass and therefore we have to designate X amount of dollars from our public school districts to private schools so that they can hide the money. They are completely separate entities, and all this is asking for is that we allow parents to choose the best learning environment possible for their children. Again, there are plenty of opportunities that there are private schools that are created to serve special education population. There are charter schools created to serve different demographics. New America School is a perfect example. And when I think about some of our alternative schools and the fact that those are already full, sometimes I wonder, what would it look like if we had a charter school that could give home to more children that are struggling if we are not currently able to do so or keep up at a fast enough pace? So again, I would be asking that we make, at minimum, some changes to this document. If not, take no stance. The League of Charter Schools has not taken a stance. The CEA, the Colorado Education Association, took a stance against Amendment 80. It's written very similarly, talking a lot about private school funding, and I am just concerned at this point that there are more inaccuracies in our resolution than there are accuracies.
I would,
Sorry. I was just going to say, I hear what Director Potter's saying and have some agreement. I think it's interesting that I think every one of the board directors up here at some point has chosen a different choice school for their kid. My kids were just choiced into schools this year. I come from being a preschool parent at Bow Swan, and I know that they're trying to get a charter through Broomfield, or not Broomfield, Boulder County, Boulder schools. And I do recognize that people have a fear that their charter is going to get blanketly rejected. My problem with this text as it is written on the ballot is it does say private education and it does say homeschools. And I think that that just continues to open a door that public dollars are not being held in the public space and held with an oversight that is incredibly needed. I understand the argument to make sure choice is there. I appreciated the comment that this is redundant because, again, I think that if your board has had each one of us choose a school that best fits our kid, there's really no need to do this. And when you start putting things in here like home, schools, and private, and we all understand how funding works, that opens kind of a slippery slope.
So this has nothing to do with, well, let me put it this way. Charter schools are public schools, and this amendment, it's not about charter schools, because charter schools are public schools, and they get public school dollars. And I'm sorry, Ms. Weaver, it kind of made it confusing, but it is about private schools. and it is about homeschools. That is the concern. That no, it doesn't specifically say it, but what it does is if it becomes something in our Constitution, that means it's the state's obligation to fund it. We already have school choice in Colorado. And as Director Marsh-Holson explained, we've all chosen not necessarily homeschools for our kids, but within our district. And why does it need to be enshrined in the Constitution? Because once you put something in the Constitution, as you all know, it's hard to get it out when people realize what it's opening the door for. And I think a lot of people don't see that, and they don't believe it, that if this passed, we would be obligated as a state to fund private educational institutions. Therefore, I think, anytime you want to put an amendment to our Constitution, you better think long and hard, and I'm glad at least that it takes 55% of the voters to approve it. I mean, that's a permanent thing. Think of how hard it is to put amendments into the U.S. Constitution. Okay, so that's, in my mind, why I oppose Amendment 80, because first of all, we already have school choice. It's law, it's statute, and it does open the door to make private schools say to the state, you have to fund us.
Would there be possibility to amend our current resolution then to make that argument? Because I do agree with you, changing the Constitution is a very serious thing, and we do already have Colorado law in place. I think, some of this is driven from the Senate bill that almost passed last year that would have potentially closed a lot of charter schools. And I do think there is a compromising area where, we could get to a better place with the resolution away from where it's written right now.
What are you suggesting?
I think it would be great to include some verbiage in here about how changing the Constitution is part of our reasoning for not supporting the amendment. I think, like you had pointed out, it does mention private schools and homeschooling. Again, the spirit of the amendment was to make sure that parents always have a choice. And so language about supporting the rights for parents to have choice, while maybe in keeping some of the other verbiage about concerns about private schools, I think there's just some compromise in there that could be made.
So maybe a statement, a whereas statement, whereas students in Colorado already have a choice as to what public school they attend. And you could say public school, traditional or private, or sorry, not private, traditional or charter. Is traditional the right word to use?
I would say district managed.
Thank you. Okay, so whereas students in Colorado already have a choice as to attend a district managed or charter school of their choice? Mr. Spare has his hand up.
If the board's going to consider that, I would just point out the third whereas clause on the first page. School choice has been established in Colorado law since 1994, allowing parents and students to choose from a variety of educational environments, including neighborhood public schools, charter schools, private schools, homeschooling, and accredited online schools.
So I think in addition to that, a whereas statement about the board's feelings in regards to the seriousness of changing the Constitution as opposed to
Keeping it in state statute.
I think we're looking at you, Phil.
I'm sorry, I was reading the next one that says Amendment 80 would, for the first time, enshrine a right to private schooling in the Colorado Constitution, an unprecedented and unnecessary action.
So kind of looks like it's there.
So again, I guess when I read that, my takeaway, and maybe I'm just unique in this, when I read that, it doesn't say to me that the school board supports choice, just not changing the Constitution.
So maybe it would be something to the effect of an unprecedented amendment to a statute that it's already doing what it's supposed to do. Is that what you're saying?
Something like that.
Okay.
sure.
I mean, I feel like this covers that. I mean, and I could be unique in that as well, that those concerns that you've brought up, Courtney, it's throughout here, because it focuses on private schools, which, as a side note, in Colorado, private schools are not registered as educational institutions. They are registered as businesses. And as a business owner, a private business owner that does contract with the state and takes through a voucher system for funding for Department of Corrections, there's definitely not enough accountability by any means. And so going back to that, this document, sure, I mean, that's all it says, is it really focusing on the harm of what it could open for private schools, which are essentially just businesses.
What if it's whereas school choice as supported by this board before the has established? I mean,
How do we insert that, or how do we propose an amendment?
We're still operating under the same modified motion, so we don't have to redo that, but I think we could read that proposed change into it and then include that in the final vote.
Okay, the third whereas school choice, which is supported by the Adams 12 Board of Ed, has been established in Colorado.
You could say, whereas school choice, which is supported by this board
Okay,
with a capital B, and then continue with that.
does that work, Courtney? Okay.
Would it also be possible, we are not a rural school district, and if we pass a resolution, I do feel like we really need to be mindful of our populations that we are governing over, to strike the whereas, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth whereas that talks about rural schools. Personally, as a board member, I don't feel like I have enough experience in a rural school district, considering that's not what we govern over, to speak to that. Is that?
But I think that it also says that it would benefit private schools, which are in our area. So it covers the whole spectrum.
Okay. The final ask I have is to remove the word vouchers from the second, now therefore be it resolved, paragraph on the second page.
Where are you talking?
The now, therefore, we.
No, therefore.
So what language are you thinking? Instead of,
That the Adams 12 5-Star School Board of Education opposes Amendment 80, commonly called school choice in K-12 education.
how about maybe adding something in there and potential funding to private schools?
Well, I think that statement is up to each of us to decide if we agree with it. I mean, in my opinion, well, I oppose school vouchers because they take public funds away from public schools, and it's my job to be responsible for public schools in Adams 12. So therefore, vouchers that would take money from Adams 12 into the private schools would be against my thoughts on what it'd be to be a fiduciary responsible person for this school board.
Well, and I agree. I mean, I think vouchers are an entirely different conversation, which is why I'm asking that we remove the vouchers portion from Amendment 80, because Amendment 80 isn't addressing vouchers specifically, and maybe have them have two separate resolutions if we feel the need to pass a resolution about vouchers, or wait until vouchers come up to then address that, and use this strictly to address Amendment 80.
Well, I think part of the impetus against Amendment 80 is saying that should it be passed, then it enshrines in the Constitution that children in Colorado have a right to a private education that needs to be funded. So I think the thought here is to be proactive in preventing that from possibly happening by pointing out that legally it could happen.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing. We have private preschools that are offering free or universal preschool already. And I think in a lot of ways it has challenged our public entities to improve and be able to compete in some of those ways, but it's also, it takes some students. So that was it for my suggested changes and my thoughts on that. So thank you for hearing them.
Okay, is there any other comments anybody else wants to make? Okay, I think Chris.
So maybe Phil will ask to clarify, or we'll restate something just to make sure everyone's got clarity about what you're voting on.
Yes, the vote is for the modified motion with one further change, and that is to revise the third whereas clause to read, whereas school choice, comma, which is supported by this board with a capital B, comma, has been established, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we're voting on.
Okay. Director Assad Lucas?
Aye.
Director Battistelli?
Aye.
Director Goldstein?
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holshen?
Aye.
Director Potter?
No.
Okay, thank you. On to the resolution and appreciation of taxpayer investment in Adams 12 five-star schools. So I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution and appreciation of taxpayer investment in Adams 12 five-star schools as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Director Potter requested that we put forth a resolution. So you have one to look at. And I'm going back to I can never figure out how to do board docs on an iPad. Okay. All right. So, comments?
I appreciate you guys hearing this resolution today. We had a request for this several times during public comment, and I thought that we owed it to our constituents to at least have the discussion. I think this resolution was written fairly well, does a good job of highlighting all of the responsible ways that we have used the taxpayer dollars. However, I'm a little bit disappointed that it seems to fall short in acknowledging some of the sacrifices and tolls it takes on our taxpayers. We have a lot of families, we have a lot of individuals in the Adams 12 boundaries that don't have kids in schools. And so, I was hoping that we could acknowledge kind of that population that is choosing to support our students, even though, they may not be directly immediately impacted, even if they will be impacted by having an amazing workforce and reaping the benefits down the road.
So if you look at the now therefores, they're numbered out 1 through 4. Number 1 says, we extend our sincere gratitude and appreciation to taxpayers past and present. Would putting something in there like regardless of whether or not they have children in our schools
I think, a suggestion that I had would be, now therefore, the district deeply acknowledges the financial sacrifices made by community members through their property taxes, understanding that these contributions reflect a significant personal investment in the future of our students, and that the generosity has been instrumental in ensuring that our schools remain safe, modern, and capable of providing high-quality education for all. I think that touches a little bit more on the magnitude of ask we are making on some of these families, because while it is a cup of coffee for some, that same $10 is an entire meal for others.
So do you all have that in writing in front of you, or did you just,
No, I did, I wrote it down.
could you read that again?
Yes. Whereas the district deeply acknowledges the financial sacrifices made by community members through their property taxes, understanding that these contributions reflect a significant personal investment in the future of our students, and that this generosity has been instrumental in ensuring that our schools remain safe, modern, capable of providing high-quality education for all.
Anybody have any input?
I think
Can
that
I-
was
oh,
a really long paragraph, and we're all
Yeah.
just still trying to process.
All right, I was just gonna ask, do you mind if I'm such a visual person, do you have it that or like written out or?
Am I allowed to email it to the
Anything.
board? Or do I have to email it to Stephanie?
What is that? Just need it visually.
I'm going to look to Phil and see if he has any objection
Okay, well,
to.
I emailed
I
it to
prefer
Stephanie.
if it get emailed to Stephanie, and if someone needs a written copy, that can be distributed that way instead of interacting between board members by email during a
Okay, I
meeting.
sent it to Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since we aren't going to have a lot of time, we don't have time to really digest that right now, may I suggest we table this till the next meeting where we have a chance to look at it and consider it in a more thoughtful manner?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, so we're going to do that. That'll give us time to look at it visually, think about it, and we'll come back next time.
I was trying to only make like one addition, but get all of the feelings and things in that statement.
Courtney, could I ask a clarifying question about that
Yes.
suggested language? Is that in addition to items 1 through 4, or is that to replace something?
Or maybe replace one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, on to proclamation, Dyslexia Awareness Month. I will entertain a motion to adopt the proclamation declaring October 2024 Dyslexia Awareness Month in Adams 12 5-star schools as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Do we read proclamations? Or, because I know some entities do. Okay. All right, comments?
So I am very thrilled that this is on there. I know my predecessor, this was a deep issue for her. And as someone who is on this board with pretty severe dyslexia, I really appreciate it. I grew up where the stigma was pretty not great when you had dyslexia, and really didn't allow you to feel like you had a whole lot of potential in schools. And I had a lot of great support, but I had a lot of people assume that I was not going to make much of myself. And this week, my daughter was diagnosed with dyslexia as well. So again, I think that this proclamation, we have a lot of them, and I know there's a lot of other awarenesses out there that we need to rise up, but I think that this one, to overcome the stigma that is so prevalent, is really important, so I appreciate that.
You know, to echo what Director Marshallson said, I think it's so important that we shed some light on this. I know Laura would be excited to have this on here as well. As another board member that has struggled with dyslexia, I understand how hard it can be, even serving this capacity. There are plenty of people that like to point out that I can't spell and I can't read fast and all the things I can't do. And so I think taking the moment for both yourself and other people to acknowledge that this is a thing that people still deal with, even as adults, and they can be successful and they can go on and achieve greatness is just pretty special, and I'm grateful that we take the time to do it. I think Alexis is a wonderful example of the kind of successful adult you can become, and I hope that we can continue to inspire more people with dyslexia to push past those boundaries and kind of block out that other noise and know that we are capable, and we are a capable population. So thank you for putting this on the agenda today.
Well, and again, just to echo both of what you guys have said, is one thing I really appreciate is, bringing more awareness and understanding to dyslexia, and especially to speak to what you said, Alexis, that we're getting away finally from the stigma of having a learning disability or a developmental disability equates to your overall ability, and especially what you are able to do later in life. And I know not too far back in the past, we've had many people who had a learning disability or developmental disability that had nothing to do with cognitive functioning be shipped away or put in special school, and it was pretty detrimental. And so I really appreciate the awareness and the understanding that we continue to bring, and also the tools we introduce that we make system-wide. And again, this was Laura Mitchell's passion, but that will normalize this for all kids, and because they're all learning the exact same way, even though it might be more helpful for students with dyslexia. And so, yeah, thanks for continuing to bring this forward.
And just to kind of second what Amira just said, what I love about proclamations like this is that it's our ability to normalize learning differences and to see them as differences and not so much disabilities, because we see two very successful women up here who have stated that they, have this in their background. And as someone who has a child with his own learning differences, not dyslexia, but certainly other things, the more we can do to remove the stigma, to remove the stereotypes, and to remove the negativity around a difference is the best thing we can do in our role.
And it's interesting, Mara, that you would mention that in the past, kids with learning disabilities like such were shuffled away, because I have a cousin a few years older than me who was shuffled across to a different state. And the methods that they used back then were not the methods that they have now to help him learn how to read. And we have those methods in this district now, thanks to Benchmark. And I just have to say, you don't need to speak about Laura in the past tense, because she is still passionate about reading and the science of reading. And I think that continuing to bring this forward every year, too, is very important. Okay.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holshin.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, proposed revisions to monitoring report schedule. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the proposed revisions to the monitoring report schedule as presented.
So moved.
Second.
So last time we saw the changes. It's always good every once in a while systematically to look at what we do routinely and change the routine as necessary. So, any other comments?
Director Assad Lucas,
Aye.
Director Battistelli,
Aye.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holshin,
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, questions for the board meeting with the principal representatives. You have the attached. Every year, we meet with a representative group of principals from all levels. And I will tell you, you don't have to ask them too many questions to get them talking. So we just wanted a few. They are somewhat different than last year. We change them every year based on what's going on in the system. But I guarantee you that we will run out of time before they all get to say everything they want to say. But is there any comments? And this is not something we have to vote on or anything. It's just if there's any other questions you think we should put on there.
I was looking at the benchmark question that we have, and I would love to see some sort of invitation to principals to discuss benchmark's success around the special populations piece. So how is it working for emergent bilinguals? How is it working for students on IEPs for different reasons? How is it working as far as the instructor or teacher's ability to differentiate for twice exceptional students? So just more in that line. And I'm going to be the person who is going to go out on a limb and say, for question 3, what? What is that talking about? I don't know what you mean by capacity builders and value add. So if you could translate.
Happy to do that. First of all, a suggestion on that one. I think this is applicable to all levels. So I might encourage you to say for all levels or just drop the introductory clause. Our capacity builders are our common term to capture all the educators in the building who work on building the capacity of our classroom teachers. So this would include instructional coaches, social emotional learning specialists, gifted and talented advocates, digital literacy partners. I feel like I'm missing one. Thank you. Interventionists. It's great to have a gallery here tonight. So capacity builder is all of those folks. And so I think a question asking them what has been the impact of our investment in those positions is a worthwhile question.
And then for number 4, takeaways from this year's state assessment results. I'm hoping that they'll also be willing to provide some context or background, because I know sometimes there are variables taking place at a given school that may be useful to understand when considering assessment results. So,
When they answer it, if they're not addressing that, just prompt them.
okay.
So kind of around number 3, I would agree to take the high school part out. I'd like to know what all of our schools are doing, but I am, maybe because it's on the forefront of my mind, I am curious to know how they are doing this work with the portrait of a graduate in mind. And I would like to know kind of their thoughts on that new concept while we have them all there, so that we can kind of have a benchmark of this is where they were at going into it, this is how they now feel, and now they love it or they hate it or we need to make changes.
Will they have had time to really?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I love the idea of bringing the portrait of the graduate into the conversation. They will be less than 2 weeks into viewing it when they see that, so they could probably give you some anticipatory ideas in that space, but you're not going to get a deep, well-vetted, concrete answer to that piece. But I did like the piece around how do you use these really expert educators to help lift all boats in your building. How do you structure them? How do you use them? That addition to that question, I think, is really valuable.
The portrait question would be a good question for next year.
We could still ask for like what's your one word that comes up when we mention the portrait, just to get that initial reaction.
Especially knowing how many creative, colorful words were used when we introduced benchmark.
I don't think we need to add, but I just wanted to point out on number 4, the takeaway from state assessments results. I heard a lot of stress last year at the elementary level for the calendar of assessments, especially towards the end, and kids getting tested every day. So I think if you're going to look at results, you have to look at how the test was given and the time period it was. So I don't know if we add that, but I just want that in the back of everyone's mind.
And, I mean, it does not need to be added because it always comes up organically, but about mental health and how that's been looking over the past couple years. I remember when, I think it was my first year, maybe it was before I was even Courtney and I were elected, but there was a lot of talk about, mental health and kids struggling, and just all the things that have been put into place and supports and resources and how that reflects now. But again, that always tends to come up organically, so I don't think it really needs to be added.
Yeah, this does tend to be an organic conversation more often than not, so, but, if we get to a point where you have that question that's not being answered, maybe go ahead and ask it.
I don't think that.
Or if we still have time. Because remember, we only get, what, an hour and a half? Yeah. All right. On to the minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of August 28th, 2024, and of the work study session of August 28th, 2024, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Director Assad Lucas,
Aye.
Director Battistelli,
Aye.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holshen,
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, on to monitoring reports. I will entertain internal monitoring report, General Operating Limitations Policy 2.0. I will entertain a motion to acknowledge that the board has received a monitoring report as of September 18th, 2024, for the period July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, of the superintendent concerning Board Policy 2.0, General Operating Limitations, and finds the superintendent's interpretations are reasonable and supported by data that is relevant, justified, and complete.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and Mr. Spare.
Thank you. Phil Spare, General Counsel for Adams 12 5-star schools. The statement that I am providing the monitoring report for this evening states, the superintendent shall not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational circumstance which is either unlawful, imprudent, in violation of government regulations, or of commonly accepted business and professional ethics and practices. So the first part of that statement is unlawful. We're not to do anything that is unlawful. We interpret that to mean, are there any court decisions or final agency decisions that have found that we were in violation of the laws of the United States or the laws of Colorado? And I am reporting that we do not have any such decisions or judgments by final agencies or courts during the time period at issue here, which is July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. The second item in the report talks about imprudent. We interpret imprudent to mean any situation which violates operating limitations, ongoing violations of district policy, or a failure to adopt any policy required by law or government regulation. And I am reporting that we are not in violation of any of those standards. We use some due diligence efforts to check with district leaders to see if they have any ongoing violation concerns, and I have not received any. In my day-to-day work, I come across lots of different issues, but when we find a violation of policy, we do our best to correct it, and we don't allow ongoing violations. So we have no ongoing violations to report. The third standard has to do with violation of governmental regulations. It's very similar to the first one about unlawful activities. And here we're looking at government regulations, which is really just a subset of state and federal laws, often in more detail. And again, I don't have any decisions or judgments by final agency action to report that would be a violation of our policy. And the final item is interpreting commonly accepted business and professional ethics and practices. We take the ethics concerns very seriously. Most of the ethics concerns with public employees are distilled into District Policy 4130 that addresses staff ethics. Those policies are available online and are included in ongoing communications to district employees during the annual contract process. I do, in my day-to-day work, receive some either reports of potential ethics violations, which are investigated and then corrected if need be. My preference is when someone asks me in advance, would it be a violation of the ethics policy to do X, Y, or Z, and then under the policy itself, I'm to give them a legal opinion and a recommendation. And we do not have any ongoing concerns there. A second part of District Policy 4130 is an annual audit that'll be reported by the FAC, the Finance and Audit Committee, which I understand is scheduled for the October 2nd board meeting. Those are the highlights of my report, and I'll take any questions that the board members may have.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marshallshin.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, I'm sorry, I have to leave for a family emergency, so I'm going to scoot out, and I'm sorry to leave you guys early.
Okay, hope everything's okay. Okay, number 2, Internal Monitoring Report, Operating Limitations Policy 2.6, Employment Compensation and Benefits. I will entertain a motion to acknowledge that the board has received a monitoring report as of September 19th, 2024 for the period August 15th, 2023 through August 14th, 2024 of the superintendent concerning Board Policy 2.6, Employment Compensation and Benefits, and finds the superintendent's interpretations are reasonable and supported by data that is relevant, justified, and complete.
So moved.
Second.
I see Mila Shepherd.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me forward to speak to this monitoring report. This, as Lori said, is a report pertaining to employment, compensation, benefits. There are 6 sections that we divide our information out into. The first one has to do with superintendent compensation, and I would say about this section and all of that follow, there are no significant changes to this report year over year from the last couple you've seen, actually. We've updated all of the numbers, but I report compliance in all 6 areas of this policy and no significant changes. But just as a matter of overview at a high level, that first section speaking about the setting of the superintendent's compensation, the second section pertains to employment practices, staying legal, as Phil was sharing, in recruiting, hiring, evaluation, promotion, termination. All employment practices are legally applied. Our compensation section 3 deals with a few different areas of the total compensation package, information about our analysis process for setting compensation, information about our salary plans as they compare to other districts, information about our benefits plans, which is part of the total compensation package, both medical, dental, and vision coverage, as well as leave of absence as it compares to other places. And then in that section, also information about the ALP, the longevity plan that was formerly administered to administrators, and the stipends that were provided to certified and classified employees. All of those programs have been phased out long ago, but we still do have employees who are grandfathered and being in receipt of those stipends as they retire from our system. So you've got some updated numbers there about the numbers of folks in those programs. The fourth section speaks to the prohibition about obligations that exceed our ability to project year to year. So that speaks to the annual budgeting process and not getting beyond ourselves there. The fifth section speaks to the prohibition of, to incur unfunded liabilities or to create unpredictable or inequitable situations. And the sixth section is the requirement of a 6-month separation period before hiring Board of Ed members to be employees or contractors. And so in all sections, as I said at the start, I report compliance. I know of no situations that violate any of these. So I welcome any questions that you have about the information I've shared.
Anybody have any questions? None. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Time to vote.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli. Aye. Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holschen.
Aye.
Okay, on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the personnel actions as listed: resignations and terminations, transfers and reassignments, employment, and leaves of absence.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion?
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marsh-Holschen.
Aye.
Okay, calendar. September 25th is our special board meeting with our principals. This is not on YouTube, though? Okay, right, okay. And then we have October 2nd is our next meeting. We have our work study session, and then we have our regular meeting. And then October 8th is our special board meeting at CSEA. We'll have questions at the next meeting to go over. That, too, tends to be an organic conversation. And it's always fun to listen to classified. And is there anything else?
I'll just share that the first October meeting, I won't be present because I'll be at the League of Innovative Schools meeting with Matt Schmidt. But Bo, I think we'll be duly ready to go and support you all that evening.
Thank you for letting us know.
I would just add that on September 28th, Legacy is having their band festival. I don't know the correct term. I'll be at that if you want to add that to the calendar.
I think we got invitations for that. There's a couple of things going on that day. Yeah. Okay, well, without further ado, I will say we are adjourned. I really like this early meeting start. I think everybody else does too.